Hello, everybody. It's with a great pleasure, respect, and honor that tonight I have the opportunity to speak to Professor Vlatka Hlupic, who has just recently written a book and published a book called Humane Capital. And that book has immediately caught my eye and attention. And I asked Vlatka to speak to me, and she's been very kind to say that she's willing to speak, even though she's been interviewing with BBC and many other worldwide networks already. So without further ado, I don't like to introduce people because I always kind of do a bad job of this. So I'll just pass it over to you, Vlatka. Please introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what brought you to write the book Humane Capital.
Well, good evening, and thank you very much for inviting me to do this talk. People sometimes introduce me as several people in one. I do many things and I juggle many things. I'm a computer scientist who became behavioral scientist, and I studied a lot of different disciplines. And because of that, I was able to connect everything together and create a system for the big shift, which is also known as the management shift, which is also the title of my previous book, which led me to write the new book, Humane Capital. So I'm an academic. I'm a professor. Working with several institutions. I'm also running the Management Shift Consulting Company, which is a consultancy specializing in leadership development and transformational change for organizations. I used to do a lot of coaching for CEOs, C-level executives, and so on. So these are my main roles. And I believe this work is my life purpose, and I'm on a mission to make this world a better place, or at least to help the business world to shift to more humane ways of working. So this is what is driving me. It's all about the big shift, and to use the management shift terminology it's the shift from level 3 to level 4, and I need to explain the levels so anyone who is listening can understand what we are talking about here. So on the basis of very extensive research into various theories and models, I figured out that there are 5 key levels that our mindset goes through in development, and there is a corresponding organizational culture at each of those levels. And every level is characterized by specific thinking patterns, language used, leadership style, and organizational outcomes. So I will very, very briefly tell you what these levels are, because I will be referring to them in other answers as well. So at level 1, the mindset is lifeless and culture is apathetic. Not much gets done. People are too depressed to do anything. And then at level 2, the mindset is reluctant. Culture is stagnating. This is where people do minimum they can get away with just to get their paycheck. Level 3, control mindset, orderly culture. This is traditional command and control, micromanagement. We do what we are told to do, but we are not unleashing our passion for work. We are not fully engaged. There is low level of creativity, innovation at those levels. But majority of organizations are at those levels, 2 and 3 mainly. I would say about 80 to 95%. And then there's the big shift. The management shift is when we shift from 3 to 4. And at level 4, the mindset is enthusiastic, culture is collaborative. And all the keywords here are trust, transparency, purpose, collaboration, community, having fun working, giving back to the society, taking care of the environment. This is where we have socially environmental responsible companies. This is where companies become truly humanized. And then occasionally we can go to level 5, where mindset is limitless, culture is unbounded. And this is where some innovation teams work day and night on big innovations or solving big problems for humanity, such as Google X Lab inventing driverless cars. So the key is to be anchored at level 4, then occasionally go to level 5, we can't be there all the time. We will just burn out. And then we go back to level 4. This is where we are. We can go down temporarily, then we bounce back. So this is that big shift from level 3 to level 4. So this is the foundation of the management shift work. And then on the basis of that, I developed lots of tools, processes, etc., which have been used in various organizations worldwide to go through that big shift from old to new ways of working, which are more humanized. Now I can come back to the new book. It's a long answer, but I wanted to say about the background. So for the new book, and then I thought, okay, the management shift is based on over 20 years of my interdisciplinary research, and they're practical tools because I believe we have to develop tools, processes, methods which can be applied in practice, which can make a difference for the real world of business. And then I thought in 2015, it was a year when I had a big birthday as well, and I was thinking, what am I going to do? And I thought, oh, I'm not going to do abseiling or running the marathon. And I thought, okay, I'm going to interview 50 inspirational leaders and see what are their strategies for shifting from level 3 to level 4. And that's what I did. And I enjoyed the process so much that I couldn't stop. So I continued interviews in 2016, and then I finished. And after I interviewed about 58 leaders, and then in 2017 I've been writing the book, and this year as well, analyzing all the data, and everything resulted in over 272,000 words of transcripts, which I read several times. The data was analyzed manually and with software and Viva, 35 case studies, and there are 200 strategies that I pulled out from all the case studies, 50 per sector. So we separated them for public sector, corporates, SMEs, and nonprofit. And then when I pulled all the data together, I figured out there are 8 key pillars for creating humane companies and to leverage humane capital.
So perhaps it would be useful to know what those 8 key pillars are.
I can't tell you yet,
okay,
because after the book is launched officially, we will talk about those pillars. So
awesome.
It's not in public domain as yet, but I will tell you one thing. The number one pillar, the key pillar, is the mindset. It all starts in our minds and our attitude, and then it spreads like ripples, because with our mirror neuron brain cells, we emulate mood and emotions of people around us. So we have to be at level 4, as I explained, and then the better it gets, we spread positive ripples. If you have critical mass of people at lower levels before level 4, it's like a negative vortex of energy because of the way how our brain works.
Indeed, and that's certainly been our experience in working on transformation projects, where often the time we have to be very careful about people feeding in the negative and destructive ideas that disable the change or upgrade upwards, and also create systems that enable those people to climb the ladder to the next level of value effectively. So how would you summarize the main premise of the book, knowing that there are some secrets that we cannot reveal just yet? How would you summarize the thing, and really like, what is the main reason for somebody to buy the book and use it in their day-to-day or regularly for their management transformation programs, let's say?
If I were to summarize everything in one sentence, I would say the book shows the evidence, a lot of evidence, a lot of data, that companies can do well by doing good. So these two things are not mutually exclusive. On the contrary, I have interviewed so many companies where they're socially responsible, they treat their employees well, their customers, they take care of the environment, they give back to society, they are charitable, and so on. And their profits are continuously increasing. And there's so many examples I can share. And it's not just about the money as only. There are examples from public sector as well. I can give you one example. A public sector organization from Norway, Innovation Norway. They went through the big shift. They used my book, The Management Shift, actually to shift from level 3 to level 4. And after they have done that, they reduced the time it takes to process startup grant applications from 60 to 4 days. So it's not just about rising profits, it's about providing better value and service to citizens in the case of public sector. Or I can give you an example of non-profit, Buurtzorg from Holland. They provide nursing care, and it's completely organized on the basis of level 4 thinking and very humanized. And their revenue grew in the last 10 years from 1 to 400 million euros. And they're so successful, and their costs are 20% less than the cost of other organizations. And mainly because they operate at level 4. And there are many other examples, and that many of them are in the book, obviously. So if somebody were to buy the book, they can see, well, 50 strategies per sector. They can also see what the key pillars are that they need to focus on to humanize their organization to a higher level. Also, they can see what the key barriers are and how they can be overcome, or also the value of that big shift. And that was most exciting part when I was reading all this code and actually listening to interviews. It was really humane and very inspiring, because people said, of course, they talk about numbers. When you go through that big shift, you get extra 10 to 25% of turnover. Your company value increases by at least 10%. It's worth of millions, billions of pounds or dollars. But most importantly, are these qualitative benefits that they quoted, such as it's a difference between survival and bankruptcy. It's a difference between a mere existence and true happiness. Or somebody said, I can say that the board member from John Lewis said, well, it's priceless because there is no price for magic.
That's really something that you use the word magic, and coming from one of the actual people in the industry as well, and seniors, because that people at the end of the day, even Steve Jobs was talking about magic of Apple devices, and so the technological solutions needing to be magical to appeal to people and to provide that experience. So what are the main shifts that you see in organizations now? Perhaps that's a little bit broadly phrased question. So let's focus on corporations. What is a kind of typical corporation that you encounter, and what's its main shift that it needs to make to kind of step up the game?
A number of shifts, but it's about distributing decision making, for example. Because everything is so complex, and we live in the VUCA world. Everything's volatile and complex, and it's impossible for people at the top to have all the knowledge to make the right decisions. So one thing that's very important is distribution of decision making, so that people who have the right knowledge and experience, and people who are facing customers and know what their needs and preferences are, they should be able to make decisions, not the people at the top that don't have anything to do with customers, for example. When we do that, a lot of decisions are made in parallel at the same time. And when we simplify all the bureaucratic signatures that you need to get to make something happen in highly bureaucratic organizations, that's a huge shift. Another shift would be to delegate responsibility rather than tasks. So, which means you trust the people that they know how to do their job well. When you give them tasks, you're just micromanaging them, and that is level 3. We still need some elements of level 3 in situations where safety, security, quality is important, for example. But every organization would need to be innovative, especially in some areas and in some industries. Then we need a level 4, and for that we need to let go of this centralization, bureaucratization, standardization, specialization, lots of rules and regulations that work well in the production economy when efficiency was the key, but it is very detrimental for innovation, productivity, creativity in modern organizations. And there are other trends as well. We can talk about technological advancements. We can talk about millennials and their expectations. Well, millennials expect level 4 management as well. So there are many, many reasons why we need to go through this shift to level 4.
Awesome. And so one of the things that the founders of IDEO have spoken about is when we use something like design thinking methodologies to bring in some of the innovative ideas, we often find ourselves in a situation where if it's happening from the ground up, we end up hitting the middle management layer, which they refer to as the kill zone. People that often look to kind of kill great ideas and maintain status quo. And then IDEO spoke about having the CEO air cover that can come in and remove that kill zone to enable the new sprouts of ideas to flourish in an organization. But the question is, how can managers, that quote unquote kill zone, how can they adapt to these changes that you're proposing?
It's all about creating awareness. It's all about, I use the analogy, creating the crack in the wall so the light can come through. So they need to realize that if there are bottlenecks, they need to step back and just let this innovation and creativity emerge. And in order to facilitate this big shift at organizational level, I have developed organization diagnosis tool called the 6-box leadership diagnostic tool, on the basis of many, many years of interdisciplinary research. And through thematic analysis, I created around 150 factors that drive innovation, value creation, performance, profit in companies. And then I grouped them in 6 areas. And that is how the 6-box leadership diagnostic tool was created. So it's like an MRI for an organization. We can scan and see where are the hidden strengths and weaknesses for any organization or part of the organization in the areas of culture. So we can see what kind of culture organization has, relationships, how well people work together, individuals, their mindset, drive, skills, motivation, strategy, how it gets developed and executed, systems, how the work gets done, and resources. And once we scan organization and we collect quantitative and qualitative data, so there are 120 questions, it's completely anonymous and people can say whatever they like in a safe way about any question that we are measuring and any topic. And once we do that, the next stage is we prescribe the medicine, which means we create with an organization a very specific 1-year action plan. And we can slice the data, for example, per department, per managerial level, which is quite interesting. So we can get the scores and compare the scores between top level, middle managers, and everybody else. And we can see where the bottlenecks are. And people are very open and honest because it's safe, it's anonymous. And then we can deal with that during action planning process. And the whole action planning process was designed using design thinking, and it's very iterative, and it's like a funnel process where we have lots of ideas, what to do about strengths and weaknesses, and then we narrow it down to a few very specific action points. We assign responsibilities, time scale, priority, etc., etc. and then we can help implement it and then rescan everything within 12 to 18 months and see how everything is shifting to level 4, hopefully. And that has been used in lots of organizations worldwide in the last 8-9 years since I invented this tool.
Perfect. Is the tool actually available online, or is it something that companies have to first engage with you and then you carry out the assessment?
Everything is online, but companies have to engage with myself. Okay. I have trained and accredited other practitioners, consultants. So I scaled up. So we have a capacity to work with several companies at the same time. So anyone who is potentially interested, we could discuss how this works. But I can just say briefly that we collect data once, but we can use it for many, many different purposes. One purpose would be large transformation, culture change, culture shift, but there are other purposes such as it could be used as employee engagement tool 2.0 because it goes beyond traditional employee engagement tools where you just tick the boxes and not much gets happen. So we design this action plan so everything is then followed up in practice with specific action. It can be used, for example, as due diligence tool. So we scan companies and we can advise venture capitalists. It's perfect for mergers and acquisitions because we can scan company A and B and see what problems you will get when you try to merge apples and oranges or something like that. Can be used also to design a very bespoke training program. So you can see where the gaps are and then we can design training program, or it could be used, for example, as a risk thermometer to flag out any alerts for auditing processes or for succession planning, talent management, and so on.
Awesome. That sounds like music to my ears. Really, I'd actually probably want to become one of those trained up consultants myself. So the next question is, what's the role of design thinking? You've already mentioned a little bit, and for our community, often the time people misunderstand the idea that design thinking is like a sole framework that people tend to bring in and don't want to touch anything else. Whereas really in nature, design thinking is very mix and match approach, and it welcomes other approaches. So how do you use design thinking in your life?
Well, in this particular work, I use design thinking to design action planning process. So there are specific steps that we take when we go through design process. I have forms designed, which are also in big posters, which we can use in workshops when we give feedback to clients. And it's all structured, and that's where my computer science training comes handy. So we have structured steps and iterations, and so from idea to design the first version of action plan, and then we sift through different ideas and then we narrow it down. So it's an iterative process. And it's very creative as well because we use some kind of a crowdsourcing approach to do that, where I would say to organization, invite, 50, 100 people at different levels of an organization to contribute ideas, how to leverage their strengths or address weaknesses, because innovation is in different pockets and quite often at lower levels, operation levels, where people facing customers know what people at the top don't know. So it's a very democratic process as well, but at the end we need to go through all these ideas and be really pragmatic and select what will work and what small actions can lead to big impact. And we know from complexity theory sometimes a small change can lead to big outcomes.
Absolutely, ripples in the ocean. With us, we're big fans of integral theory and spiral dynamics. How and if has that at all influenced your thinking, and have you come across it? What do you think about that stuff?
Of course. Well, some people said what I developed is the how tool to create teal organizations. So as I had been writing the previous book, The Management Shift, I researched the spiral dynamics and integral theory and various other theories. And it is not coincidence that my main brand color for the Management Shift Consulting is teal, because we are helping to organizations to shift to teal level. And from spiral dynamics as well, we're talking about the turquoise level. So that's kind of incorporated as well. So that's why I chose those colors for my brand as well. And the butterfly is also symbol for my brand, which symbolizes transformation, metamorphosis, and also complexity theory thinking, which is behind a lot of my work. And with the 6-box leadership diagnostic tool, I have brought together lots of different disciplines under that umbrella. As well as with the 5-level model, I brought a lot of theories, and one of them is the spiral dynamics model. There's some others, Susan Cook's Greuter model and Maslow's model, and so on. So yes, I'm very familiar with those models, and it completely resonates with my thinking. And I can share another story that I've been very fortunate to have a foreword written by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And when his advisor saw my book for the first time, he said he was amazed how well I described and how well I understood the process of interdependence, given that I never had formal Buddhist training, but I come from the complexity theory perspective, so that's how I understand it. So they really liked the book, and they offered to write a foreword, not just to give endorsement, and that was one of the reasons. In addition to its humane ethos and compassion, which I'm advocating.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I'm just taking a couple of seconds to inhale that beauty. So the next question is really around how can people best engage with your book? Because we say, we don't read books, we put them into practice. So what would you advise on that front?
That's an interesting point, because I have been thinking that myself, because there's so much in the book, so much data, so many case studies, so many strategies. And in order to really help to implement the ideas from the book in practice, my team and I have designed a board strategy game, Humane Capital, which is based on the book, which is all around 8 key pillars for humanizing organizations. So the board game can be played by a team of up to 8 people. And when people play the game, they can learn about key pillars. They can learn about the key strategies in their particular sector, and then they can select one specific strategy with one specific action to take away and implement in their organization straight away after they finish playing the game. So it was designed to really put this laser focus on, okay, what can we do straight away to make our organization even more humanized at a higher level.
I was saying to a friend of mine a couple of days ago that it seems like the people like Peter Drucker, who still seems to be one of the top management thinkers of all time, seem to have been a lot more spiritually informed than what seems to be the modern day management writing. But it's good to see that like the books like Humane Capital are going back to those essences of what management is about, and really treating people like human beings. And the word being the core word there. And so sometimes, we have a program called Fresh Mind, and I've said it's about taking you from human to being. Going forward, how would you like to see the community engage with the book in a practical sense? You had me in the previous statements, you had me at the word game, but tell me a little bit about how you see the community use the game and the play to put the book into practice. And so, for example, we've just worked with BT, British Telecom, that has 100,000 staff in at least 2 countries of the world, in India and UK. So for some organization like that, what level of engagement would you want to see in the perfect sense? Let's say, okay, 100% would be amazing, right? But sort of for that to happen is less likely than, you know, lower levels of engagement. But what's the recommended level of engagement that you would want to see people have in an organization for it to really start having that sort of butterfly effect across?
People can just get the game and play the game, and then they can read the book, because with the game they get instructions and they can grasp the key concepts, and then they can read the book to really understand in more depth what this is all about, and read all the research and go into strategies in more details and so on. Or people can read the book and then they can decide, okay, I really want to implement this. How do I do it? So game would be a catalyst to do that. And then they can get the game and they can play with different groups of teams. So at any moment, 8 people can play the game together, and it takes about 60 to 90 minutes to complete the whole cycle and to come up with specific strategy and action to be taken. But if you want to create big ripples, and this is great for any size of organization, but if you want to do it faster at the larger scale, then 6-box leadership diagnostic tool can handle that, because with the tool we can scan thousands of people. It takes about 20 minutes to go through a survey. We can slice the data anyhow. So within the day we can get a complete MRI for entire organization, even if it's as big as BT. And then we can work further on some action planning and see, okay, what needs to be done. Also, in terms of the shift, I worked with huge organizations, and I work with small organizations, and the approach that we often do in large organizations would be, let's take one division, one department, let's help them to shift, and then it spreads like a ripple. It's slower, but it's kind of safer, because you don't want to change everything on a large scale at once in large organizations. So, but it does spread, and then there are cases of IT consultancy, a multinational. There was one division, 70 people. They shifted, the profit increased over 200% in 2 years. Then the second division shifted, they increased profit substantially. The staff retention was improved. They didn't have to do any marketing. The customers were just coming to them because the whole energy was changed. So it takes a bit of time, but results are always there.
So just a sub question here. Do you see this process as design or management, or a mixture of the two?
It's a mixture of the two. The whole thinking behind my tools and approaches, it's integrative and interdisciplinary. So you need all of that. And the key 2 aspects of the 6-box diagnostic tool are 3 areas which relate to people, which are more soft, and then 3 areas relating to processes, which are more quantitative and more structured. But you need all of that. And then if in any of those 6 areas you have a bottleneck, it's like a weak link in the chain. You need to fix it, otherwise the whole chain will break, or the whole organization and its performance will be at a lower level.
Absolutely. And conscious of your time and the fact that you are being chased down by the multimedia organizations such as BBC, and I bet you're going to be on all sorts of big US channels soon. So just give us some core bullet points for takeaways for our mindset shift. So a lot of our community is into meditation and wellness and well-being, so, and contemplation. So what should we contemplate on after this conversation? Give us 3 or 4 things to kind of, get our minds into.
I can't think of a better community to rest than this, because I live and breathe everything you mentioned. But few points. First, it's about creating awareness. Once people are aware of the 5 levels, and we can't skip the levels, so we can only shift from one level to another. It's like a spiral ascension, if you think about spiral dynamics model. Creating this awareness of level 4, thinking patterns, language use, actions. This is something that has to become subconscious competence. That's something that has to become second nature. And we can practice that, and there are ways of doing that, so that by default we are at level 4, and that really, really helps. Then the whole world around us changes. And we know in order to create new habits, we need to have a certain repetition of a certain number of days or weeks, so that new neural connections are formed in our brains. So this is something that needs to be done firstly at the conscious level, and then it becomes subconscious competence. Then it's about helping others around you. When you see that they're at lower levels, you can bring them to one level higher if you use the language of the level above. So that's all about also sharing stories, examples, case studies of how wonderful it is to be at level 4. And there are lots and lots of stories in my new book about that. Maybe I can briefly just share one of them, because it's one that I really, really like, and it could really be motivating. It's a small company, a media company called PropellerNet. What they do, because they're at level 4, they're increasing their performance and profit all the time. But one of the things they do is making employees' dreams come true. So every month, when they reach their monthly target, they take one ball from the box, and every ball will have a dream written down by every employee in the company. What their dream is. It could be taking family to safari, going to Brazil to see World Cup, or having support to publish a book, anything. As soon as they reach the monthly target, they take one ball with the dream, and then the company pays that employee to make their dreams come through. And they have a queue of people that want to work there, and their revenue is constantly increasing, and it's wonderful. And they have a special well-being fund as well, where anyone that wants to do anything to do with well-being can just get money from that fund and implement it. So I think your community might resonate with this example. So it's really about understanding where you are, understanding where people around you are, knowing how to help them to reach the high level, and understanding it's a win-win when companies are humanized. Then they do better, and then people do better, and they're more purposeful, they're more alive, they're happier, and that's the way forward. And it's not some romantic dream. And there's a lot of research evidence from my research and other people's research that that's the only way forward.
Awesome. And so just to wrap up, tell us a little bit about the book, the mechanics of the book launch, and where people will be able to get the book from, and also the game. How is the game going to be distributed? Because I think a lot of our community will be very interested to play the game, maybe even play the game first, because they'll be familiar with some of the concepts and put that into practice. So where did they get the book and the game from?
The book is on Amazon. It's released, well, it has been released yesterday in the UK, and I think in about 6 weeks' time it will be released in the US as well. It will be on Amazon as well. It can also be obtained from Bloomsbury Publishing website. And the game can be obtained from our website. So it's www.themanagementshift.com. And then there's a page called Humane Capital. And then there's some buttons where people can just click, and then they will be taken directly to the game shop where they can get the game.
Awesome, excellent. That's super cool, and thank you so much, Vlatka, on speaking to me at a very short notice and honoring our chat. And we will definitely include this book into the Integral Library online and make it available far and wide for a long time to come. And have a perfect weekend.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Have a great weekend.